Today on the show, we are joined by Michael Pless of Real Bucs Talk to recap Bucs free agency and look ahead to the potential in the 2026 Tampa Bay Buccaneers season. All that and more on today's Cannon Fire podcast.
I want to hear cannons. Downfield, pull up, ball to the 5, touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans does it again. Fire the cannons, Bucs.
It's first and goal. That's picked off. That's picked off. And who else? Rondé Barber. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may ride to the Super Bowl with that one.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon. Throws up with a head. Intercepted. 30. Derek Brooks 30. Brooks to the 25, 20. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. We're going to win the Super Bowl. And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
Hello and welcome back, Bucs fans, to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire podcast. I'm your host, as always, Rhett Matthew, joined alongside me, as always, my good buddy and co-host from BucsNation.com, Mr. Evan Wanish. Today, we are taking a look at Tampa Bay Buccaneers free agency so far, looking ahead to the 2026 season, asking a couple of hard-hitting questions, if you will, and we do it all with the company of Michael Pless from Real Bucs Talk, back on the show today for another round of Bucs Chit Chat. Michael, we appreciate you making time, man. How you doing?
I appreciate you fellas. Good evening. It's a awesome Friday because we got March Madness in full swing. And Bucs free agency, I think, has taken its toll here throughout March, and now we turn towards the draft and see what other moves they make. Probably wait for those contracts to get a little cheaper and see if they can add some more veterans. But yeah, I'm excited to discuss what has taken place with this team.
Absolutely. A lot of fun with college basketball right now, as you had mentioned, March Madness in the thick of it right now. A lot of upsets so far, the bracket busters left and right, and just a lot of entertaining basketball on TV right now. Taking a lot of Bucs fans' mind off of, what initially seemed like a nightmare offseason. And, I mean, listen, we're just going to be honest with you. I think there's still some convincing the Bucs are going to have to do to fully get this fan base to buy back in. Now, are some people overreacting? Absolutely. It happens all the time. But there have been some gut punches throughout these last couple of months for Bucs fans. And I feel like when we talk about this Bucs free agency and we try to recap everything as a whole, the conversation has to start on the departure of Mike Evans, because, I mean, that changes the Bucs in more ways than one. Obviously, you're out a dominant X receiver for your wide receiver room next year, but you're out one of the greatest players in franchise history, an absolute weapon for this football team, and a guy that has kind of dominated the offensive mentality for the better part of the last decade. So, I mean, not only is it going to be a philosophy change, it's going to be a locker room change. It's going to be, the guy on the side of the stadium, that's going to be changing a little bit. It's going to be odd to see Mike Evans in a San Francisco 49ers uniform. Evan, we'll start here, man. And I know you and I kind of talked about it on the last episode, but there's a lot of serious questions that have arisen about Mike Evans' departure. And I think that, where some of the more critical conversations are going to take place is from a team building perspective. Emotionally as fans, this is going to hurt. It's going to hurt when Mike Evans goes up there in San Francisco for his opening press conference and says, hey, I just wanted to play where I had the best chance to win. It's all about chasing championships. It's a great thing seeing the fans fill up the stadium and feeling that atmosphere. Like, it's, a lot of fans took that as a shot, and I get it. Emotionally, it hurts. But from a team building perspective, do you think the Bucs ultimately made the right business decision? Or are we going to look back at this something in a couple of years if Jason Light is still the general manager and say this was a necessary turning point for the future of the team? The report came out earlier this week that, yes, the Bucs did indeed offer Mike Evans more per year than the San Francisco 49ers did. But, I mean, we knew that even before that report had come out. We knew it wasn't about the money. But that was just, an added caveat for the people who were already so hurt by the situation. So we know what the Bucs were willing to spend, probably north of $20 million to bring Mike Evans back. From a team building perspective, was this the right thing to do as much as it hurts?
I mean, obviously, when you're just looking at it, and I think I'd mentioned this on maybe the last episode or maybe an episode before that, but if you just take the names out of it, right, and you don't have the Bucks and you don't have Mike Evans, you don't have any context, and you just look at 30-plus-year-old receiver coming off an injury riddled season, contract year. So with the team for a long time. That team just invested a first round pick in a receiver the year before. That receiver showed flashes, right? It's not like he was a complete bust in year one. Like first 8 weeks, he was arguably the favorite for rookie of the year. You also re-signed a receiver to a big money contract the year before that, and you have a lot of needs on the other side of the ball. If you just did all that and didn't have any names attached, yeah, like the best team building aspect would probably be, well, you let the 32, 33-year-old receiver walk, and then you allocate resources elsewhere, right? You allocate the resources to the defense, to maybe an offensive lineman. You let those receivers you already have in there, you let those guys, continue to develop and play. But when you add in the, like you mentioned, the emotional aspect of it, the loyalty aspect of it, what Mike Evans means not just to the Bucks on the field, but off the field as well, that's where it gets a little tricky, right? And I'm sure the Bucks drew a line in the sand of like how much they were willing to spend on Mike Evans. Obviously, it wasn't like a blank check, but even if it was a blank check, I don't know if that would have gotten Mike Evans back anyway, right? Because it really seemed like, yeah, it was not about the money. Yeah, I absolutely believe Jason Light when he said the Bucks offered more money than the 49ers. I mean, the 49ers didn't give him that much money. Like there was probably a couple other teams out there. There was a report that what Mike Evans had an offer for one team for 1 year, 27 million. I think Mike Evans got that offer and probably said no thanks. My guess is that that's probably from a team that's not very good, which is that's had a lot of cap space. That's what my guess is. Maybe a team like the Titans, needing a wide receiver, having a lot of cap space. Maybe the Raiders, perhaps.
Cleveland.
That's what I
You
was
know,
gonna say.
yeah, like that would make sense. And I think Mike was probably like, no, like I want to win. So, um, and he wants to win now. So in terms of a team building perspective, yeah, I mean, one, time will tell whether it's the right move or not, right? Like you could be looking back at this moment saying, well, this was the beginning. Now, the Bucks aren't trying to rebuild this year, right? This is more of a, I think, a retool, but they're trying to be competitive. They believe they have a shot to win this division again, right? They believe they have a shot to make the playoffs and maybe win a playoff game, maybe, win a couple playoff games. Who knows? They nearly did it in 2023, right? Nearly went into Detroit and won that game. They were only a couple snaps away, right? If a couple snaps went their way, they're playing the NFC Championship game in San Francisco next week. So they believe that they can. Now, 5 years from now, we may look and say, yeah, that was nobody really officially knew it, but that was the beginning of the end for this, era and regime and stuff like that. Or you could say, man, like, yeah, it hurt at the time, but was probably the right call, right? Because Ibuka turned out to be, a star, and they were able to get different resources on defense, and that worked out. And we'll see. I understand it hurts right now, and it should honestly, like it should sting. Um, this is somebody who has been there since freaking 2014. I mean, bro, has all the Bucks records, like you said, Red, arguably the greatest Buck of all time. And it does sting, especially when it's not like, well, he got completely overpaid. He did. The team offered him more money. So from a team building perspective, probably, but like, will we know if it was the right move? Probably not for another, 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
What do you think here, Pless? I think there's a follow up I have here, but overall, I just want to get your thoughts about this.
Mm.
Being a turning point again from a team building perspective. Like it sucks to do, but to a certain degree, you got to rip the Band-Aid off and look at the other necessities you still have on both sides of the ball, mostly on defense, but still some
Right.
holes here and there.
Yeah, I think Evan laid it out perfectly. I was one, if you listen to our show on Real Bucs Talk, me and Mark have been talking about the business side of it and also the team aspects. And we were okay with Mike Evans, going to a different team and letting him go. I know the emotional aspect, and I think that's where a lot of fans, are upset, frustrated with. They wanted this guy to be a Buccaneer for life. He even said that the last time he re-signed with the team. So I think it goes into all those things that you guys have talked about as far as being on a team that he believes can contend for a championship, but also a team that is going to make him the number one go-to guy. He doesn't have to work for the football. I think he's about legacy right now. He wants to stack his numbers. And we also have to remember he's going to a team where his guy that he's been chasing and Jerry Rice played for. So that makes a big impact on him. And being a part of that team and then on, topping his legacy and also having a new challenge. He's repeated that several times about the challenge of, and I think sometimes things run stale for, being with the same franchise. And I know it's not the same comparison, like, any one of us, looking for a new opportunity as far as jobs go. And we're looking for that new job, and you just want something different. You want to change. Things have gotten too constant or too repetitive, and you're just looking for something that can maybe give you that extra jolt. And for a receiver that's 33 years old, maybe that's what he needs. He needs that burst of energy to feel young again, and also to maybe elevate his game. So I understand it completely from a team aspect. Like Evan said, you just invested in a Emeka Egbuka. You re-signed Chris Godwin, who they fully trust to become the Chris Godwin of old. And then you have Jalen McMillan, who no one seems to really, I think, discuss enough. Like, that guy is going to be a good receiver in this league. And on top of that, you re-sign Cade Otton. You bring back him to solidify the tight end position. You have a solid group of playmakers on this offense, and adding a Kenneth Gainwell on top of that. But we'll get into that here shortly. But just to wrap up, with the Mike Evans, obviously it's a huge loss. Franchise leader, face of the franchise, and it's going to be tough to replace him. I don't think you really can replace him. You're going to have to figure out how to run this offense in different ways than what we've seen. It's not going to be the traditional X receiver, and maybe they go out and draft a big receiver, but I think you have to look more so. And the good news is you do have an OC that you brought in Zach Robinson that you feel confident can be similar to Liam Cohen and maybe a little bit different than Liam Cohen, but bring that style of Rams offense where they were completely fine without an X receiver until they traded for Devontae Adams. They used Puka, they used Cooper Kupp in different ways and really attack the intermediate of the field. And I think that's something that we're going to see here with this Bucs offense. And that actually plays well into Baker Mayfield's strengths. Yeah. So there is positive outlooks for this, but I can also see the negative where you lose a dominant red zone threat. You lose a big time playmaker when you need it the most, especially on third downs. So it's going to be an adjustment. The offense definitely is going to take probably a little step back. But we're gonna have to see how they can adjust and play to that without Mike Evans. But yeah, I mean, it hurts nonetheless. But I can see why he left. I can totally see it.
That was the point I brought up about because we have a lot of questions of like, oh well, how are they gonna run offense now? Because everybody looks at their record without Mike Evans and stuff, and basically because I believe this on the last episode I mentioned, I was like, yeah, the record's not good. The numbers aren't good. But that was an offense that was designed having Mike Evans on the team. Like that was an offense where, yeah, like you're running an offense, but you're running plays basically that, yeah, you think you're gonna have Mike Evans out there. So now that you don't, you're able to game plan that a little bit differently, draw those things up a little bit differently. And you talk about those more intermediate, the medium and the middle of the field sort of. I think the Bucs want to take a lot less deep shots than they did in 2025, which is actually kind of funny because I do remember one of the complaints from Liam Cohen / Dave Canales offense was some people felt like they didn't take enough deep shots in those offenses. But I think the Bucs they want to limit the deep shots in 2026. So having a sort of a Liam Cohen-esque offense doesn't mean it's going to work out the same, but having a Liam Cohen-esque offense, because like I said, everybody says, well, they hired Zach Robinson to keep, Liam Cohen. Well, they hired Josh Grisard because they want to keep the continuity from Liam Cohen. So how'd that work out? So, and not to say Grizzard was a complete disaster, but compared to Cohen, it's a tough draw. But yeah, I think the Bucs want to throw the ball deep a lot less in 2026, and that's not the only thing Mike Evans can do. Obviously, we've seen him do a lot more, but it'll be interesting to see how exactly roles change, right? What does Emeka Ibuga's role look like without Mike Evans? What does Chris Godwin's role look like without Mike Evans? This will be the first time in Chris Godwin's career that Mike Evans is not on the same team as him. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, the Baker Mayfield conversation is more than valid too. And you bring up Liam Cohen, 2024, that season where Baker's throwing 40 plus touchdowns, he's having career high in efficiency. If I'm not mistaken, he was like a top 3 guy in the NFL, quarterback wise, as far as yards after catch. If you totaled up his receivers, he was definitely at least top 5 in that category. So that's just when he's at his best. We saw it early on this season. I know he was a little bit more decisive with the football, but just opening up the toolkit a little bit and giving him more options to just feel more comfortable in these games so he doesn't, second half of the season, we started to see those happy feet show up a little bit, just didn't have decisive options. And we remember a lot of that season, he was without Mike Evans. So the X conversation as well is going to be interesting when you look ahead to the NFL draft. We begged the conversation on Twitter/X. I still call it Twitter. We asked the people, would you be open to the Bucs drafting a true X receiver in the first 3 rounds? 150 people voted. 48% voted yes, 40% voted no, and 12% said unsure. So
sounds like most of the fan base is unsure, to be honest with you. We got almost a split there.
Yeah, I mean, there is no doubt that when you look at the talent in the Buccaneers wide receiver room, it's a wide receiver room that can absorb the loss of Mike Evans, but you're just going to beg the question after this year, if they decide to roll with those guys, you're going to look at Emeka Ibuka, and you're going to look at Jalen McMillan. Really, you're going to look at your top 3 in that room and say, man, how badly do they miss a big, dominant guy like Mike Evans? Because Mike Evans isn't just a dominant X receiver. I've heard this said. He is a guy that when other teams are game planning against Tampa Bay, they figure out how to stop Mike Evans first, and then they kind of figure out how to stop everything else. And I think that's just, that's the effect he's had for, again, well over a decade. And the offensive philosophy, the things that are going to be changing, it'll be fun to see. But I'd like to see them play into the strengths of, obviously, the players they do have, and, of course, the quarterback, Baker Mayfield. One of the other things Mike Evans said, and this is where we kind of shift our focus into free agency and all the moves that they have made thus far. The signings, you mentioned Kenneth Gainwell at the running back position, Cade Otton back on a 3-year deal, Alex Anzalone from Detroit, Ashawn Robinson on the interior defensive line, Al-Qadim Muhammad from Detroit, Miles Killebrew for special teams, safety depth, if you will, and Sean Tucker, they tendered him, brought back O'Keefe as well. That was announced. Mm-hmm. Mike Evans said that when he looked at the 49ers, they were just one piece away, and he felt like he was that one piece that they needed. So it begs the question, and Michael, I'll throw this one to you. How many pieces are the Bucs missing, right? Like, how many pieces away is a Mike Evans going to see this 2026 Bucs team when he compares them to a team like the 49ers? Obviously, the Bucs did address some needs on the defensive side of the ball. I think there is a conversation to be had about those signings, obviously, and we'll get to that here in a minute. But overall, your thoughts here. Like, how many pieces would you say this Bucs team truly is from where the fans seem like they want them to be? And, after these signings, how much further do you think they have to go?
Yeah, I would say there's questions. I think they've improved the overall depth. I think they've improved the overall floor for their team as far as defensive additions that they've made so far. But with that said, there's still questions. Offensive line will it stay healthy this year? When you look at, we talked about the receivers, who's going to be able to step up. Can Emeka Ibuka take that next leap into a bona fide, number 1 receiver? That remains to be seen. Bucky Irving, Kenny Gainwell as a tandem. Can they find a way to get Baker Mayfield back on track as far as a good, consistent quarterback like he was in 24? Defensively, I think you're still missing pieces because we just don't know what is going to be at corner. You know, Benjamin Morrison, can he be a starter? Is it going to be Jacob Parrish on the outside? What is going to be your other linebackers next to Anzalone? Can Anzalone, you know, play this type of defense where he's going to be asked to blitz a lot more? So and the biggest question of them all on defense, and I brought this up to you, Rhett, before the show. Can the one guy stay healthy that needs to stay healthy the most? And that's Kalijah Cansey. Kalijah Cansey is the difference maker for the pass rush. If he is in there for all of the season, then this pass rush is completely different next to Yaya Diaby. You added Al-Qadim Muhammad, who can provide pass rush as a situational rusher or even a third down guy. A'Shawn Robinson gets you bigger and helps you as far as a run defense. And I think it's getting more so back to the mold when they had Ndamukong Suh and Vita Vea. And I'm not comparing Robinson to Ndamukong Suh. They're not close, but Robinson is a much better player, in my opinion, than Logan Hall or Greg Gaines. So you upgrade in that sense. And I think the more so mentality of the players that you brought in, the attitude, is definitely going to help. So long-winded there, but yeah, they are missing answers at certain spots where right now it's further away than, say, San Francisco. And San Francisco is not just Mike Evans away. They still have to figure out defense as well. I think he definitely helps them in terms of offense. And you have one of probably the best offensive play caller in the game in Kyle Shanahan. So going there, I think he feels like he can take them over the top and they'll just score a bunch of points and be fine. But they're not without holes either. So they have weaknesses just like the Bucs do. That's why the offseason is longer than just a month. And I try to tell fans out there, try to just take a breath. It's going to be okay. Let's see what the finished product is going into August and see how this team stacks up. Because the Bucs could go into the draft next month. They could trade up for Sonny Styles and fans are going nuts. Like, you know,
all of a sudden the linebacker room looks a lot different.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they could trade up for David Bailey, get a legit pass rusher off the edge. And, you know, the discussion changes vastly and it can change on a dime very quickly. So I try to reiterate that to people. It's going to be okay. Let's see what the full plan is of the offseason and see what happens. But right now, I think, yeah, you're probably still a few more pieces away. And we just got to see how certain players step up and how certain things happen as far as injury luck goes.
That's one of the things I sort of just thought about, and we're not going to really talk about this because it's not going to happen. But I'm like, you know, all these Bucs fans are so down and stuff. I'm like, would they just like flip the switch if the team just traded for Max Crosby? Like, would that be like the move? Or like even like at this point, like with the pass rush, like a Jonathan Grenard, like would that be like the move where they're like, you know, okay, you know, like I just want like a Kayvon Thibodeau, somebody like, you know, those pass rushers that have been rumored to be in trade talks, even though Thibodeau, I don't think it's going anywhere, but like I just wonder, you know, like how drastic would their tune change if the Bucs went out and made a move like that? Not saying they will, I'm not expecting them to. Even though like I don't think the Grenard thing would be impossible. That seems more in their wheelhouse than obviously a Max Crosby move, but I still think at this point it's probably unlikely. But yeah, just like Plus said, I mean, things can change a lot, and you know, then afterwards you sort of have that third or fourth wave of free agency right after the draft, kind of. Because honestly, a lot of veterans and teams may decide at some point in the next couple of weeks to decide we'll take care of this. We'll see what happens in the draft. Like if they're looking at other linebackers, they may say, well, if we don't get a couple of linebackers, which they're not done at linebacker, folks, like they are going to add more linebackers. If they say, well, you know, we like this guy and this guy, if let's say we want two, we only get one. Okay, then maybe we'll go out and we'll sign somebody. So there's always sort of that you know, third or fourth wave of free agency there as well. So corner's another thing, just like Plus said. A lot of I actually think not the worst group, but the biggest unknowns of the group, I guess, because there's so much volatility there. Like it could be really good. Like I could see a world where this corner room, if Zion McCollum is 2024 Zion McCollum and Jacob Parrish continues on, a pretty strong rookie season, Benjamin Morrison can stay healthy and can showcase some of them ball hawking skills he had at Notre Dame. You're talking about a corner room. Maybe it's not like a top 10 room in the league, but I think it's a room you can get really excited about. Or it can sort of crash and burn, and Zion McCollum can't get back to the player he was in 2024. Benjamin Morrison can't stay healthy, and Parrish hits maybe a sophomore slump. That's a scary thing, right? But they could also look for some veterans. Guy like Rasul Douglas is still out there. Martin Emerson, I think, is also out there as well. So there's a couple guys, but yeah, I like that. Plus, it's not the offseason's not done. They're not playing football tomorrow. Let's take a look at what the roster looks like in August, and then we'll see what happens.
When we talk about these acquisitions, there is a conversation people are having about the age of some of these acquisitions. And I know that really it's only two of them that are going to jump out more than any others, but when you're talking about A'Shawn Robinson and you're talking about Alex Anzalone, two guys who are playing at positions that, yeah, you'd like to see the Bucs get younger at. I mean, I don't think a linebacker room with two 30-plus-year-olds is going to inspire a lot of hope for people next year. Anzalone, obviously a very, very talented player. Yet to see his fit in this Buccaneers defense. But all of that aside, do you think that there is validity to the conversation being had, again, about how, why couldn't we have gotten some younger talent? You'd like for free agency to be something that you can bring in some long-term contributors for your team, right? You'd hope that if you're spending, I'm not going to say that they overpaid for A'Shawn Robinson, but he's never been paid as much in his career as he will be paid with the Bucs in 2026. So again, not going to say that they overpaid, but a lot of people are like, it would have been nicer to target some player who's maybe 27, 28, can give you a couple more years of productivity. But I know that when you're addressing this situation I think the Bucs defense is in, you kind of want just the proven fix. Anzalone's more of a sure thing than I think some of the other guys they could have gotten out there and gotten. Robinson, even though he's a little bit more splashy, it's more of a sure thing. And like you said, feels like an upgrade when you look at just the rotation of talent. But, people are going to say, oh, Vita Vea's, aging at this rate. And again, you want to get younger. You want to establish a presence there. Obviously, that's what Kalijah Cansey's for, but if he can't stay on the field, then who knows who's going to be able to stay on the field if you're wearing these guys out. So when you hear that conversation and people say, oh, Jason Light's not serious about, trying to build this team up for the future, how do you ultimately take that?
My thing is basically, look, yeah, ideally, yeah, you do want the 26, 27-year-old free agent who, has a ton of upside and has already proven himself, but still has maybe some room to grow. Sure, but that free agent, one, doesn't often hit free agency. And two, if they do, it's probably not going to be cheap. Like,
Yeah.
it's probably not going to be very cheap. Now, if we had a crystal ball, you could argue that basically, when you look at the number that Devin Lloyd got from Carolina, he got a little bit less than I thought he was going to. Same thing with like Nakobe Dean. If I had a crystal ball and I could choose one of those guys over Alex Anzalone, I probably would. Um, but like, there's injury concerns with Dean, and Devin Lloyd. Like, he was really good last year. He was pretty solid the year before, I believe. But like, Jacksonville, I believe they declined his fifth year option. Like, so like things weren't going very well. Um, and he really made him pay, right? Like he made him pay for it. He had a heck of a year. But like that's the type of guy, right? Lloyd's 27. I think Dean is either 26 or 27. Those are the types of guys, right? Then like, yeah, sure, ideally. And but again, the Bucs don't have a crystal ball. They don't know what's going to happen. And maybe the Bucs were interested in those guys. We don't know, right? And maybe they reached out to Nakobe Dean and they reached out to Devin Lloyd and they both said thanks but no thanks. We have no idea. So yeah, I mean it is funny though. They'll say, "Oh, Alex Anzalone's too old, A'Shawn Robinson's too old," but they want to go out and get 31-year-old Trey Hendrickson. That was like the big thing, right? Getting Trey Hendrickson.
Oh, well, they kicked the
Um,
tires.
yeah, no,
Was
they
the
did. They did.
report was they
I'm
kicked
saying
the
like
tires?
from a fan's perspective,
Yeah, I
right?
know.
From like, they were clamoring for Trey Hendrickson, but you're upset that they're signing, veterans here. And I think this defense needs some veterans, right? I mean, they've drafted a lot of young guys on this defense. Um, and a lot of times it hasn't worked out. They've taken some gambles, right? Tried to give Shirasi Dash a shot. Before that, it was KJ Britt. Now you try and get a safer bet, Alex Anzalone, and you're going to pair him with someone else, maybe two more people. Lavonte David could come back. If he does, it's probably, and it should be, and it probably will be in a somewhat different role. But then you're going to draft a linebacker in the first 3 rounds. I would be stunned if this team does not draft a linebacker within the first 3 rounds of the draft. So you're going to have a young guy there. It's okay to bring in a guy like Anzalone. You had Logan Hall in the interior, a young guy. You drafted Elijah Roberts, who you're hoping can play a bigger role for you. It's okay to sign Ashawn Robinson, especially when Todd Bowles literally said they want to get bigger, right? I think Jason Light alluded to that too with the combine, that they want to get bigger. Ashawn Robinson definitely does that. And the Bucks run defense, like, has it been a complete disaster? No. But like teams also run less now than they did, a couple years ago. But it's nowhere near the 2019, 2020, 2021 levels of run defense. So Robinson can help out with that, making teams more one dimensional, making them pass a little bit more. So, yeah, I mean, ideally, yes, you're going out and you're getting the guys with tons of upside, and you found a steal and this and that. Like, I get it, right? Like Shaq Barrett, right? Shaq Barrett was like 27 or so when he signed a 1-year deal with the Bucks, and it worked out. That's the ideal free agent signing, sure, but that doesn't happen very often. So I think the Bucks, I think, did a pretty good job with the pieces they got. I think they were the right pieces brought in. Would I have chosen different players? Maybe, but I also don't think it's so egregious that, like, if I think Ashawn Robinson is worth $7 million, I'm not gonna throw a fit that he got 10. Like, that's basically my point.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just add, like, I tell this a lot to people as well. It takes two to tango.
Yep.
And people tend to forget that when it comes to free agency. Like, you gotta have a player that actually not only is you're interested in him, but he has to be interested in the Bucks as well. And like Anzalone, he lives in Tampa, so that makes sense. It's a perfect match. And you can get him at a much lower rate than, say, Devin Lloyd or Nakobe Dean or whoever you
Quay
else
Walker, there was
yeah.
Tremaine Edmonds, there was a lot of guys, yeah.
Yeah. So Anzalone, for what he offers, not only is he a veteran, but he's a team leader, fits the culture, can play coverage. That's what they need in linebacker. They need a guy that can cover, and this guy can do that very well. He can match up in man coverage. He can match up in the slot. He can do different things in zone coverage. And I think he can also offer some blitz versatility. So all those things, he's a very steady player, and you're going to go out and draft a couple rookies to pair him up with. I think it makes a lot of sense. They're also going to draft a defensive lineman, interior defensive lineman, along with an edge rusher. So all the positions that they've added in free agency, they're going to double dip into the draft as well. So from a plan aspect, it makes a ton of sense. And I think all three of those players that they added to the defense are going to be solid contributors. They're not going to be, everyone wants the splash play, but sometimes the splash play isn't what is best for the team. And just look at the New England Patriots. Like last year, they made some big signings in free agency because they had the money to do so, the cap space and all, etc. But look at the other guys that they've added to that team at like good value deals. Chason was one of them who signed with Washington. So it's not always about the splash, even though I know a lot of people want that. But you already have the splash players on this team currently. When you think about it, when you look at the roster, look at who are going to be your stars on defense and offense. They're already here in place. It's just about, can these guys be on the field? That's going to be the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Again, Shaq Barrett signed a 1-year, $4 million deal with the Buccaneers in 2019.
Yeah.
Who would have known that he would have had the franchise single season sack record, right? That season, right? I'm not saying that's going to happen with. I'm not saying Alex Anzalone is going to be an All Pro or anything, you know. Really quick though, I had a question because I didn't want to talk about this too much because it's a complete hypothetical. Just want to throw it out there for both you guys. Get your quick thoughts on it. We can start with either one of you. I don't really care. If Lavonte David returns, which right now Jason Light has said that he has not heard whether he's returning, retiring. He has not heard at all. To be honest with you, I'm a little surprised we don't have an answer yet, to be completely honest. I kind of wonder if that may be closer to the draft thing. Maybe that's one of them post-draft. I don't know. But Love David's made it clear it's retirement or the Bucks. If David returns, and let's say the Bucks add a Jacob Rodriguez or a CJ Allen in the draft, how good do you feel about that linebacker room? Because I mean, is it perfect? No, but I think it's probably going to be the most improved unit on the team if that's the case.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, Rhett.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I'll just say, I mean, I think personally Lavonte's probably leaning towards retirement.
I do as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Anzalone is Lavonte's replacement. If Lavonte does decide to come back, I think he is a clear upgrade at your third linebacker position. And it's probably some type of split, linebacker role where he's coming in on certain situations, have the rookie come in to help you.
You want to talk about a heck of a situation
Yeah.
for a rookie. To come in there with Lavonte David, Alex Anzalone there to learn from. That's
Right.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if the pairing of Anzalone and Lavonte would work personally from a scheme fit, because they both play the same position. They're both the will linebackers. So it would be interesting to see how that marriage would work. But most likely he would probably be your third linebacker, which isn't a bad thing. But right now I see it very less likely that happens.
I agree.
Yeah, I also kind of lean towards the possibility of retirement. The one thing that sticks out to me, and it's always going to stick out to me, because if he doesn't come back and play, it's always going to be a big what if to me. And I don't think it's going to make a night and day difference in his game. The Lavonte David that we saw in 2025, there were multiple things we saw throughout the year where it's like, man. But what gets caught up, and what I think about a lot, is he admitted, he told the media after the season was over that he was dealing with a nagging knee injury. He had to get his knee drained weekly, and he said that's something he has never dealt with throughout his decade-plus career in the NFL. So it's like, how much was it really slowing him down? He's certainly not the same sideline-to-sideline guy he was, 4 or 5 years ago, but I don't know. I'd be curious to really see what he looks like if he decides to give it another go. It'd be cool for him to come back and break the record as well. Be solely in possession of the Buccaneers tackle record. And you talk about all of the Hall of Fame accolades that he has. He's one of 3 players in the NFL to do this, one of 2 players in the NFL to do this, and the other guys are Ray Lewis and Brian Urlacher. Like he's got plenty of accolades to. If he comes back, I think there's discussion of him potentially being a top 5 Buccaneer of all time, and I'm just saying, man,
Sign him week 17,
right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, look, they've done it with Shaq Barrett, they've done it with Jason Pierre-Paul, they can do it with Lavonte David.
Yeah, why the hell not, man? That would be a dopamine boost for an 8-9 football team at that point.
Yep.
All right, so. The other thing that I am kind of concerned about, though, here on the defensive side of the ball, and this is going to factor into the grades, because I want to get into the portion where we go ahead and slap a grade on Bucs free agency so far. I am a little worried about the corner room, and I know we talked about the boom or bust idea behind it. I think Zion McCollum, if he takes the right step, I'd love to see him be the player that he was in 2024, because unfortunately last year he took a big old step backwards, and it was like, we kind of were waiting week in and week out for things to start turning around, and I don't know, up and down. It was a lot more down than up for him in 2025. Benjamin Morrison, I would just like to see him stay on the field. And, of course, Jacob Parrish. I'm a huge fan of Jacob Parrish. But, again, you need these guys to stay on the field. I think injury issues are going to be a major contingent for the 2026 Bucs, and that's where it feels a little similar to 2025. I feel like when we talk about some of the mentality that this Bucs team has, The term that we have coined is we like our guys. We like our guys. And Evan, you remember going into last season, the pass rush, the conversation around the edge rusher room and the defensive line was we like our guys. We like our guys. I think there's a fair argument that, there you could look at some we like our guys and maybe that led to the detriment of the team in certain areas. So I get that uneasy feeling with the corner room. I don't believe, the Bucs obviously are not going to go out and sign a corner that's going to play in front of Zion McCollum or anything like that. I think
no, not at this point anyway.
Yeah, it's going to be your depth guy, maybe another, Kendall Vildor equivalent because he departed Tampa this week. But I get a little uneasy there. And then again, I do think that, again, I won't say overpay.
All right, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Of the three, which one are you the most confident in? Which one are you the most nervous about?
As far as?
Just production. Like, do you think Zion McCollum is 2024 Zion McCollum or 2025 Zion McCollum? Do you think Benjamin Morrison can stay healthy? Like, which one scares you the most of like, oh, I don't know about this guy? And which one are you like, yeah, I feel pretty good?
I am most confident in Jacob Parrish. Huge fan of his game. I know he was, a little inconsistent second half of last season, but he came on strong. So I think Jacob Parrish is one. I'll go ahead and put Zion McCollum two, just because he's, been in the league long enough at this point to where it's like, I don't think the wheels are going to completely fall off. And we've had the conversation about, guys like Antoine Winfield. Good players can have bad years. And maybe that's just what happened with Zion McCollum. So I'm going to put him two. And then Benjamin Morrison three. Really nothing more than just this injury concerns. I thought,
and also
year,
it's not like he was great when he was in there either.
Yeah,
I'm a big I like Benjamin Morrison. I really like the pick, but like he also wasn't like he was like, oh my god. It's not like Kalijah Kancey. Like I think Kalijah Kancey plays, he's really good. Morrison, I was like, he barely played, and when he was in, I was like, oh, not pretty.
Well, and that's where the injury concerns, I think, are going to be a huge contingent for the Bucs in 2026, because if Kalijah Kancey misses extended time, as much as I like A'Shawn Robinson, I feel like it's going to look like more of the same. It's going to look like more of Yaya Diaby almost getting there, but it's like, oh, if he would have gotten, an opening from some other guy on the line winning his rep, maybe he would have made the play. I think I am bracing for more of the same from the 2026 Buccaneers, and maybe not in as catastrophic fashion. I would certainly hope not, because again, riding the high of a 6-2 start to a 2-7 finish, I don't think anybody enjoyed whatsoever. But I still have some questions, and I still feel like there's areas of this team where they're kind of just hoping that things go right. And every team in the NFL does that, but
that's
I don't know, man. I will give it a B-.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna. When you're talking about the corner room, that's what I was gonna say. Like, you're not gonna fill every single need. You're probably not gonna feel great about every single unit on your roster, right? Like, there's gonna have to be some like, we're hoping this guy, right? The Bucs now. I think the pessimism from a lot of Bucs fans, and rightfully so, is because they've been burned by this, right? The Bucs in 2024 hoped that KJ Britt would be a good running partner with Lavonte David because he was good in limited action. It didn't really work, right? They hoped that Servassier Dennis would be the same in 2025 because he was good in limited action. It didn't really work. They hoped that signing Hassan Reddick and having Yaya Diaby there and drafting David Walker would be enough to have an adequate pass rush. It didn't work. So I think that every team really does that. It's just magnified, obviously, because people follow the Bucs, who listen to this show follow the Bucs more closely. And it's also magnified when it doesn't work, because if it does work, you'll get praise. But if it doesn't work, then you'll say, well, this wasn't addressed and you did nothing about it, right? Everybody knew that. I can see it right now. 8 months from now, we'll be in week 9, and people will say, yeah, we were sitting here in March and we said that the corner room was terrible, and look at it now. Like, you can see it, right? But yeah, I mean, you don't have limited cash. You don't have, you don't have unlimited cash. You don't have unlimited salary cap space. You don't have unlimited trade assets. You don't have unlimited roster spots, right? And you're not gonna fill every single thing with a guy. Yep, you feel great about that. Yep, you feel great about that. I mean, and even if Jamel Dean was still here, people would still say the cornerback room sucks. They were saying the cornerback room sucks when the Bucs won the Super Bowl. Like I swear it's because fans want just a shutdown, lockdown corner, a Pat Surtain type, and there's only like three of those in the entire NFL. And if you don't, people think if you don't have that, your cornerback room just sucks. So I've been hearing they've needed a cornerback for like 6 years now. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's definitely you're right to be concerned, right? Because it is seem most likely the room that they're going to be taking the most risk of hoping guys take the next step, right? You have the guys in place. They put a lot of assets in that, right? Gave Zion McCollum a big extension, drafted Benjamin Morrison and Jacob Parrish within the first, what was that, the second and third round.
Mhm.
They've invested a lot in those guys. And yeah, like you're hoping that those investments are worthwhile, basically. Because if they aren't, yeah, it's not gonna be pretty, and you're probably gonna be looking for some corners next off season if they aren't.
Put a grade on it, my friend.
The entire free agency thing,
Yeah.
um, I think they did an adequate job with what they had. Reminder, it wasn't a great free agency class to begin with. A lot of people said that's why I think Adam Schefter said that before free agency started, right? He expected to be more trade action because it was viewed as a weaker free agency class. That he said today there's been 19 trades so far this offseason. It's like the most ever within that span or something like that. So with that, and obviously you have to take into account losing Mike Evans, like you do have to take that into account. I think a B minus is fair. I'm pretty sure that's what you gave it, Rhett. I think that's fair because just like Pless said earlier, I think they raised their floor on defense. Whether you want to talk about it being safer or whatever, that's fine. Like you got to raise your floor somewhere, and I think they raised the floor at inside linebacker. Now, obviously, Servati Dennis, I don't expect to be this team's second linebacker come week one. Um, so I do expect them to add somebody there, but like the inside linebacker room theoretically got better. Your interior defensive line got better. Pass rush, I'm still wary on, and I would have liked to see them go out and like the deal that Chason got from Washington. Again, I don't know if the Bucks. We just talked about this, right? Takes two to tango. I don't know if the Bucks were interested, and Chason said no. I don't know, but the deal he got from Washington felt like I was like, nah, that seems like a deal Tampa probably should have and could have done. Um, I'd feel much better about that. But dude, the deal that AQM got, I, it's basically 1 year, $4 million. Like I'm not gonna complain. It's not terrible. But it's hard for me to say like I feel good about this pass rush group and this edge group. But that could change, come post draft. So I think B minus right now for the free agency aspect of the offseason, I think is fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give it a B. I think it was again solid off season. I think they, like I said, they upgraded in certain positions. They raised the floor of the defense. I think you're going to find more consistency of who they've added. I think that's going to help. And to the corner conversation, that's the most volatile position in the league.
Yeah.
It changes yearly. I think what you have optimism for is usually rookie corners. They take the biggest leap in year two. So that's good news for Parrish and Morrison, and that's what the
Mhm.
Bucks are counting on. I think McCollum has a good understanding of what he needs to be in terms of improvement. Now it's about rebounding, and I would expect him to. They just restructured his deal. So there's going to be, I think, some
They they
motivation.
they they they, they believe in that guy. That's
Yeah.
that's clear.
Yeah. They obviously put confidence into him. They feel comfortable with him being the number one. So we'll see. But off season overall, I think it's been solid so far. Again, nothing earth shattering, nothing splashy, nothing fancy, but they've got good football players. Kenneth Gainwell is a good football player.
Yeah.
Alex Anzalone, same thing. Ashawn, Al Qadim Muhammad. Al Qadim Muhammad had 11 sacks and 40% playtime. Like the guy knows how to rush the passer. We did a film study on him. He knows how to get after the quarterback. So that's something that this team hasn't had. They haven't had a guy that can win one on one, and Muhammad can. And you compare that up with Yaya Diaby, who can get you clean up sacks, etc., and also win a few share of his own. Like that's big. The X factor again, Kalijah Cansey. but they're going to add to that room for sure. That's going to be
no, yeah,
a lot of
I like
picks.
when you said that. Yeah, that's the clear thing that they're going to add to that is linebacker, edge, interior defensive lineman. None of those guys were the big splashes, right? Like if they would have signed Devin Lloyd, then he would have said, well, maybe they're not really going to address linebacker much, right? If they would have signed Trey Hendrickson, oh yeah, then they're not going to really get an edge rusher. But the fact that they've sort of been trying to, I know people hate this word now, but like bargain bin shop, right? That tells me that like, yeah, they're of their first 4 picks, I think at least 3 of them are going to be edge, linebacker, interior defensive line. Like that's gonna be 3 of their 4 picks. What order? We'll see.
Yeah.
Live on YouTube, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Open up the live chat here to get some grades, and these are very hard hitting out of the gate here. Steinbauer Sports with an F, very thick hog with a D plus. I got one more question here as we wrap up. Give us your Bucs free agency grades in chat. Want to get those out here. Let it be known before the show is over. John V23 says a D. Sean Aguilar gives it a C. Man, are we homers?
No, it's just, again we talked about it. It's if you had this exact same free agency class, the exact same one, but they also re-signed Mike Evans, you'll be saying like B plus, A minus.
Yeah.
Like they would.
So
like,
let me close with a fun question here. We're all about our hypotheticals, and team spending, I think, is a hot topic because I do think there is a valid conversation. To some degree in the NFL, your GM can only spend what his owners allow him to spend, and that is, that's just the situation for Jason Light. So you can come up with all these theories about his methods here, and again, the Bucs value bin shopping, but that is 100% something that has to be considered. So, fellas. If you were Jason Light and you were running the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and you had the green light for only one splash move, so that big-time trade you're giving up draft capital for, that big free agent signing, etc., let's just go back to the beginning of this offseason. What would you do? What move would you make that you think has the best chance of putting this Bucs team over the hump? Evan, we'll start with you.
So I can do sort of any move is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Like any move that was like real, like obviously I'm not saying trade for Micah Parsons or whatever, but I can do like any move that was like rumored or any free agent that was available, basically.
You can do anything you want. You could trade for Micah Parsons if you felt so inclined to.
Yeah.
I mean, the owners have given you full bore. They're like, hey, we got 3 first-round picks that are just burning a hole in our pocket, man. Go out there and get us some star power.
Honestly, I'd probably trade for Jonathan Grenard. Because it wouldn't cost. I'd keep my first round pick. That's pretty important to me. The Bucs haven't picked this high in a little bit. So I think having a top 15, yes, it is 15, but it's still a top 15 pick. I think having a top 15 pick is important. So I'd want to keep my first. That's why I'm not making a move for Max Crosby. And I think Grenard has a little bit less risk than Hendrickson. Maybe a little bit of a lower ceiling than Hendrickson. I think Hendrickson's ceiling can be higher, but probably Jonathan Grenard if I had to choose just one, probably that. Because like I said, it'd probably be maybe like a second or like a third and a pick next year or something like that. It would only cost me a 1-day 2 pick. I can keep my first round pick and add a pretty good pass rusher in the process. Like I would feel pretty good about that.
A little bit younger, too. I think Grenard's, 29?
I think he's 28, 29, something like that, yeah.
Only a couple of years, but, you're talking about a guy who could potentially contribute for 5 to 6 years.
Yeah, it would feel a lot similar to, like, the JPP trade for me. Like, it would feel pretty similar to that.
Plus, what do you think?
Yeah, I was big on, like, Boye Mafe. I was big on him. I was big on Lavonte. I think getting one of those guys would have been really nice. But again, it comes down to dollar and cents. Also all those things that we have already discussed, but if I had to say one guy, I probably would have just spent the extra money on Boye Mafe. I think he's a player that's probably going to do very well at his next destination in Cincinnati. So I think he would be someone that would have fit this team well. He can stop the run, also rush the passer. I also, if I don't know if you guys saw the episode, but I was on Pewter Report earlier this year, and I said trade for Max Crosby. So
I did see that episode.
yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I just feel like that would have been the bold move, but I
Yeah.
don't necessarily think that move guarantees you a Super Bowl. I don't think it necessarily puts you in that top end category. It would help, no doubt. I mean, but 2 first-round picks for Max Crosby, I mean, it's a lot, but he's a hell of a football player, and he's probably going to have a hell of a season now because he's pissed off. But yeah, I mean, realistic, I probably would have just said Boye Mafe. I think he would have
Now,
been a good fit.
now, just to get you, this is not Bucks related. Do we think Max Crosby's still getting traded? Because I do.
I
I
would
do.
think
think
I
there's a
do. I
realm.
do. I still do think he's gonna get traded eventually.
I think there's a realm, but I can also see where they let him stay for the season. Maybe trade him at the trade deadline, but that's usually
Mhm.
more difficult.
Yeah.
I think they just let him play out. It seems like he's bought in. They have the cap space to keep him. So I think they just let him play out, build up his value, and then maybe he's traded, next
Yeah.
offseason.
Yeah. That defense not terrible now. To be honest with you, they keep him.
Especially with a 27 draft looking to be very strong. Maybe that's where you can get a lot more capital for.
Yeah. Maybe.
it's hard to look, in my opinion, just from a picks perspective. I know that it's different when you like to stockpile picks because, that's your real estate. We can go on and on about the spending thing, but it's hard to look at the Rams, a team that many would consider the class of the NFC. I know they haven't reached the ultimate goal since they won all the way back in 2021, but it's like they are a team that is constantly thought of as a powerhouse in the NFC. They are just constantly one of the better teams, and they've had an F them picks mentality since, the 2020 season. And it's hard to see that and still see a Rams team that, if I'm not mistaken, still has a first round pick this year.
Yes.
Because of the
It's higher than the Bucks.
right, so it's just one of those things. You look at the talent that has come and gone, and yeah, they've got a lot of turnover over there when it comes to franchise guys, but it's just, man, I am all about like the Max Crosby thing. I think was what I was probably highest on, because it's just F them picks, man. I don't have faith. As much as I like Jason Light in the draft, I'm not one of those people who's going to say that he's not good at drafting, because it's just not true. It's not true. But with that being said, has he drafted us an earth-shattering edge rusher in the first or second rounds over the last, 8
He's only drafted
years?
on like one good edge rusher. That's Diaby. That's it.
Right. Man, give those picks up. I can live without them.
Well,
But
my one pushback on the whole Rams thing, right, is yes, the Rams do have that sort of mentality, and they've spent a lot of draft capital and made a lot of big trades, and for a long time, right? I mean, you go back to Jalen Ramsey, and there's a couple, like, even like Marcus Peters, like and that's way back there. Like they've always sort of made their splash moves. Now they just made it with Trent McDuffie. The Rams also, though, they draft well. Byron Young, Braden Fisk, Jared Verse, Puka Nakua. I mean, they found Cooper Kupp. Like, they draft extremely well. So yes, they do have that mentality, right? But the picks they do have, they make them count. Like they hit on their, those third round, fourth, fifth round guys. And obviously, yeah, Jared Verse was a first round pick. That was one of the few that I think, like, one of the last in like the last 7 or 8 years that they haven't traded or something like that. Was Jared Verse. But like they've drafted quite well. So that matters, right? At the end of the day, that's the lifeblood of an organization. If you can draft well, you're always going to be in it. And if you can't, then you're just simply not. And I think Jason Light's a good drafter. Is he a great drafter? I don't know if he's great. I think the past couple of years with them not being able to get over the hump with a lot of the guys, them sort of taking a back seat in free agency and letting their own guys develop and them not really developing to that next level has hurt his status, I think, a little bit. But I still think he's a good drafter, and the Bucks can do much, much, much worse. So there's I mean, if you look at some drafts from some GMs that still have jobs, you'd be like, why does this guy still have a job?
We
And Jason Light has done quite well for himself.
we like our guys. We we
They do.
we like our guys. They certainly like their guys. Free agency grades to wrap this thing up. Steven Stanfield in the chat gives it a B. He said, my favorite pick was Gainwell, $50 million cap limit, paid a 39.64, gave it a C+. Buccaneer Bryce says 15th pick is solid. There is a chance that Downs, Bain, or Bailey falls to us. We always see players projected higher in mocks fall on draft
I
day
really
occasionally.
wonder what would happen if Downs, because that's the thing. I feel like Downs is the most likely to be there, and I just don't know because like there's not really a spot for Caleb Downs on this roster. But
Yeah.
we'll see.
Sean Aguilar says, I wish Sonny Styles would fall to us at pick 15.
Nah, keep wishing.
Very Thick Hog says, bring me Grenard tonight. Buccaneer Bryce, I would have liked to see Lloyd or N'Kobe Dean sign. Let Cade walk, draft a tight end in the later rounds of the draft. Loved Oscar Delp.
I mean, I think they're bringing in Delp for a top 30 visit. Like they could still, I still think they could draft a tight end on day 3.
Yeah, they got more top 30 visits being announced. They brought in that edge rusher from Missouri. And then who was the receiver they brought in? Do you remember?
The Ole Miss receiver, I forget his name.
Yeah, Stribling or
Yeah,
Stribling.
I'm
Yeah,
blanking.
yeah.
I'm blanking on the top of my head, but we talked a little bit before the show. It's always really fun to, kind of overthink and read too much into these top 30 visits. But I think it could be telling to this Buccaneers draft strategy when you look at some of the holes they still have to address here. John V23 says the Rams use all avenues, including playing the compensatory game. It helps when you do need to make a move for an impact player. Becky Homler says, I gave the Bucs free agency a B because some of the players wanted to come to Tampa to play with Baker Mayfield. In that respect, will add positivity to the locker room.
The power of positivity. That's what we're doing. The power of friendship.
Absolutely.
That's like the 2026 like Bucks like tribute video at the end of the year.
I think it has to be. You know how every year they have the campaigns they do. Back in the day, it was Siege the Day. Before that, it was Wreak Havoc. This year, it's the power of friendship. I truly think that when you lose a guy like Mike Evans, the most important thing you can do is look around to your other Bucs fans in the stadium.
Who you need most? You need your friend.
Exactly, man. If nobody from the Bucs organization can lift you up during this time, look to your fellow friends. Look to your fans. The power of friendship is a very real thing in the big 2026. Ladies and gentlemen, that's just about going to do it for tonight's episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Want to thank everybody in the live chat for hanging out with us. John V23, Very Thick Hog, Stephen Pryor, Steinbauer Sports, Becky Homler, Sean Wallace, a couple of other people that I may have missed. Truly appreciate you guys stopping by. Subscribe to the show for more great Buccaneers content. You can also find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. You can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram at Bucks_daily. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL and check out his written work at BucksNation.com. Also want to take some time and thank our guest Michael Pless from Real Bucs Talk tonight. Pless, we always appreciate you making time for us and coming on the show. No deep voice modulator for you this time around, so I'm glad we could get you in your authentic personality.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I forget about it too, and he reminded me, and I just what a ridiculous thing, because it's over an hour, I'm pretty sure, that episode. So it's just such a departure from what you normally sound like. But tell the people where they can find you guys. You and Mark putting together really great content. You guys do the film studies. It's all really good stuff.
I appreciate you both. No, thanks for having me. Yeah, I think we're getting into draft coverage. It's a lot of fun. Check us out on YouTube, Substack. We're on now as well. We got more free agent film breakdowns. We just put out a video of Ashawn Robinson. We got a video of Al-Qadim Muhammad on Substack. So we're going to try to do more film studies, probably do the next one on Kenneth Gainwell, or Kenny Gainwell, as he likes to be called. We'll probably do one on him, and then really just deep dive into the draft. That's going to be our focus and be a lot of fun. See where the Bucs go.
Absolutely, man. We talked about all of these guys that they had just signed: Kenneth Gainwell, Ashawn Robinson, Robinson in particular. I'm excited to see the personalities develop a little bit more. There was some chatter about what these guys are ultimately going to look like in training camp when they finally get all together. The joint practices, we know there's always a couple of fights out there. That'll be fun to see. But Ashawn Robinson is I neglected to say this earlier, but he seems like a breath of fresh air when you just talk about a dog mentality. He talked about growing up as a kid getting made fun of, so he just got so angry he kicked everybody's ass. Like I don't think there is a more ass kicker mentality than you could have asked for. And that's something we brought up verbatim throughout the 2025 season when looking at this Buccaneers defense. So excited to see how things develop. Make sure you guys go check out Real Bucs Talk. Great content on YouTube and Substack. That is it for today's show. Thank you again to our YouTube audience. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off from my co-host, Evan Wanish, and guest, Michael Pless. We will see you guys in the next one. The countdown to the NFL draft is on. Of course, we will keep you updated every step of the way. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll talk to you soon. Until then, and as always, thank you for listening, and go Bucs.